Hi guys, it's a bright and sunny day and I wanted to show you a few things in the garden. It's nice and warm, it's almost 60 degrees and it's been a very warm week, so I have been very busy out here. The first thing I wanted to show you is my new polytunnel cover. My husband and I managed to get it on, and it's a little bit bigger than the structure, which is perfect because the one that it came with was always too tight and it resulted in a lot of tears. So I'm very happy to have that chore done, and it looks like a brand new polytunnel. And I wanted to show you some beautiful cabbage blooms over here. I think this is a Michavelli cabbage, and I've just let it go to flower. It's a nice early flowering plant for the pollinators, and I have a lot of things planted up in here that I've brought out. Some of these were winter sowings that I grew inside the polytunnel. I have a little bit of lettuce here, Paris Coss Island, and then I have a couple of beets here, and they're just starting to look like something. And I have some old Tokyo Kamatsuna. I'm not sure how to say that, but it's a type of mustard from Baker Creek. And then I have 3 little spinach plants, which actually, believe it or not, have doubled in size since I planted them a few days ago. Here you go. Hope you can see all that, guys. And my broccoli is doing really well, looking nice and dark green. And I have daffodils coming up through about 1.5 feet of soil. They were originally planted in this strip along the polytunnel, and they have grown through an extra 1.5 feet to come up and bloom. So I think that's quite amazing. I'm going to leave those there, especially since they did a lot of work to grow through all that soil. And then it looks like my purple sprouting broccoli is just starting to sprout. You can see one little sprout here, and hopefully the rest will follow suit pretty shortly. I've got lots of nice tulips coming up here, and I see that the buds are starting to emerge, so that's really exciting. And then over here I have some southern giant mustard, which was, again, it was winter sown, so hopefully that's going to get nice and big. I didn't have to acclimate them or harden them off because they were winter sown, and with that method they're always outside, so you don't have to worry about stressing the plant when you actually go to plant them. Along this cattle panel here, just a couple days ago, I put in some melting sugar snow peas. So I'm excited to see those. It is going to get cold again, but I think the pea family is okay. So even if it goes down into the 30s, they should be able to handle that. They're a very early spring crop. And this cattle panel just happens to be the perfect length for this raised garden bed. So once those are finished growing, I'll be able to grow some other plants that need trellising, either beans or squash. So I'm excited to have that set up. And let's take a peek around on the other side of the polytunnel. Today's project is, here's some more tulips coming up in bud. But today's project isn't going to be so much fun. I'm going to be removing winter creeper. Here's what the vine looks like. Now this is actually a wild euonymus that grows in the eastern United States, but the problem with it, as beautiful as it is, you can see it's taken over this whole stump, is that it's an invasive plant. So it has got to come out. I did take it out. I'm going to try to slowly pan over to where my tulip poplar is. That's my big tulip poplar, very old tree, but it was all starting to creep up the bottom of the tulip poplar, and it actually took off the bark of the tree when I removed it. So I was a little worried about that, and super happy that I discovered that I should remove it at this point, and I didn't wait for it to cover the tree. According to invasive.org, the winter creeper otherwise known as Euonymus fortunei, celastrellus, is an evergreen perennial vine that was introduced as an ornamental ground cover. It comes from China, Japan, and Korea originally, but it's not a native plant here, and it can completely take over forests. So it is not something I want in my garden. It wouldn't matter so much on a dead stump if I didn't see it creeping all the way through here. It's coming underneath all the leaf debris all the way over here. It travels and grows really quickly, so it can take over areas of your garden and kill trees and shrubs and just become a thug in the garden. So unfortunately, as pretty as it looks, instead of a broken down stump, it is going to come out. And I'll just plant some more things around my stump and mask it that way. And I'm happy to see that my pollinator houses are being appreciated by the solitary bees and other little pollinators. They'll be laying their larvae in there where they'll mature and make more little pollinators for the garden. So both those style houses have been successful, and within a couple of weeks there should be a lot of mud stopping up the holes, because once they lay their larvae in there, they stop up the hole with mud, and then the larvae will mature and chew its way out. So it's a very interesting process. And pollinators are a wonderful thing to have in the garden, as you know. And solitary bees are not as aggressive as other types of bees. So you don't have to worry about them stinging you like you may other types of bees. And I worked on this corner of the garden a little bit. I repainted the bench. This was something I bought in an estate sale, and it was quite rusty, so I primed it and painted it. And it's a little bit bright, but I think that once this is a shady corner, I will appreciate the brightness. I had a green on it last year that wasn't as bright, but it did need more touch up with the rust situation. So now it looks great. And it took a little longer than I thought because I accidentally spray painted a spider in the process and had to stop and cry for about an hour. So that was a tragedy. But I figured doing it this early in the season, I would come into contact with less creatures, so that was an unfortunate event. But sometimes if you spray paint in the summer, the gnats get caught in it, and it's just awful. So to reduce carnage, I always try to do it while in late winter. So anyway, sad, but I think that the spray painting project went well. And I moved some of my Japanese maples over here, and they have buds. There's not much to see yet, but you can see that they do have buds, and they should be coming back to life. But hopefully it will be an inviting place for people to sit in the garden. And I planted some tiny little things in this revamped bed. This was the raised garden bed that was just choked out by roots, and I had a big cleaning job with that, where I had to remove all the roots and add a little more soil and get it back into working condition. But I went ahead and I planted some of my artichoke seedlings here. I have 3 of them across the back, and I chose artichoke because they can handle part shade, and they also have a really strong root system. So I figured I better put something with a strong root system in here, so those roots fill the bed and not the other roots from the forest floor. And then across the front, I believe these are Egyptian walking onions. So we'll see, but they're planted all the way around, and I'm hoping they were there even while the bed was choked with roots, but I'm hoping that that's going to deter my rabbits from coming along and eating my little parsley seedlings here. So I went ahead and planted parsley in there, which is pretty cold hardy around here. and it's a biennial, so I think it'll do well back here. So just to recap, I have artichokes across the back, and they, if they like a spot, will get huge and grow beautiful, almost prehistoric looking leaves. And then across the front, I'll have a strip of parsley, and then I'll have the Egyptian walking onions around the edges. And I put these here just to sort of block the back of the bed from any hungry rabbits, but honestly, if a rabbit wants to eat something, I don't think that's going to deter it, but it made me feel better. So guys, hopefully that's going to be a big, beautiful green bed. And then I did plant here, which have not emerged yet, some oriental lilies, and they're a white variety. So that'll be nice here, over here, and over here. So interspersed with the artichoke plants. Hopefully this summer we'll be seeing some beautiful white lilies growing up. So I've got my fingers crossed with this bed, and hopefully these roots set into it before some other roots take over again. Okay, this was a harder job than I thought. This stump was covered by the euonymus, and I unearthed some nice daylilies now that have a chance to grow here, and I'm pretty confident I got 99% out. The roots extended underground about 20 feet. There was some vining in other areas back here, and I was just amazed at how far it went. In fact, I still see some over here. Looks like I missed this. Well, I'll come and get it, but they radiated out about 20 feet from this stump. So I can see how it can quickly take over a forest. And I would say I only noticed this last year because I made a mental note to myself thinking, oh, this looks nice, it looks better than a stump, I'll let it grow. Even though it was something I didn't plant. But guys, you know, all this came out. And I'm sure there's some more roots under there which I can take out as they erupt. But that shouldn't be a big deal. They shouldn't be too established. But some of these plants were really thick-rooted and took quite a bit of pulling. So I'm happy to have that job out of the way. I'll get those last couple of vines pulled out. And these daylilies should grow up now that they have some light. I'm actually surprised they're still there. I planted those years and years ago, and they must have been just barely surviving under all those overgrown vines. But now I can concentrate on beautifying this area and maybe planting some taller items around it to mask this root, which I think has been here, gosh, at least 20 years. We probably cut the tree down 20 years. So it must have been a hardwood like an oak. But sometimes there's beauty in these old stumps too. So maybe I'll plant some flowers that come out of it, and gives me another project to work on. But the yucky part of the project is done. Gosh, these new frizzle sizzle pansies are just gorgeous. They're beautiful orange, warm orange, and they go really well with my Johnny Jump Up violas, which are coming up from seed. They seeded themselves from last year, so I'm delighted with that. But violas are something you can never get rid of. Once you plant them, they seed all over the place, and I just love them. And I thought these would be a nice addition. I think it works really well. Oh, here's another bit of the Johnny Jump Ups. Little bit of a different variety viola. Those might be my favorite. But they've seeded themselves all throughout my topiary garden. Lots of my pots are filled with alyssum seedlings. Some of these I planted. I sowed a couple months ago when it was cold. And some of them are just coming up from last year's batch. So I have lots of alyssum growing here. But like I said, I've got little Johnny Jump Ups violas jumping up all over the topiary garden. And I'm just loving it. Even one on this side over here. So pretty. Everything's starting to really feel like spring, guys.